Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Human Echoes recap for Legion Season 1, Episode 1, Chapter 1. And I just want to say right off the bat here that this is a challenge for me as someone doing recaps. I've done recaps in the past for shows like Game of Thrones, and for Z Nation, and Better Call Saul, and in those types of shows, you can say, these are the things that happened, this is what I think about it. And maybe there's some twistiness, maybe you get some kind of weird mind screwy thing where this was a dream. Wasn't that cool? But with Legion, there's a unique challenge because you can't be sure that any of the stuff that you've seen at any point in this first episode is real. There are times when characters actually tell other characters, no, you're in a dream sequence right now. Deal with it. And then other times you're like, I'm pretty sure I'm watching a dream sequence right now. Or that these people are aspects of this guy's personality, that he's dreaming them, because we've seen him dream other people before, and he has dreamed these people in his imagination already. So, saying specifically this is what happens is a little bit of a slippery bowling ball to carry around. But we're going to give it our best shot because I am really digging this show so far. Noah Hawley, creator of Fargo, amazing television producer / showrunner, has got his paws all over this and really has made something special and different and unique in the superhero world. It's almost to the point where it definitely doesn't feel like superhero stuff. It's almost like he's making superpower stuff, but doesn't want to be making superpower stuff. He's just using that as like a plot device to go off and make his own incredibly weird thing, and I love it. So get that out of the way right now. I'm on board with Legion. Our hero of this story is a guy named Dan Haller. Haller. H-A-L-L-E-R. He's not hauling stuff, and he's not hollering for people. He's a hauler. Anyway, he has lots of problems. To start with, he's crazy. He sees things, he hears things, he can't trust anything in his reality, which is what makes this so slippery. There's a couple of times in the show where we cut away to people watching him that he shouldn't know is watching him. So those might be definitively, yes, this is real, but beyond that, everything that we see could be in his head, and many things are obviously in his head, to the point where they tell him, no, I'm a hallucination, you need to deal with this, I'm dead now, or I'm being projected, or whatever. David is in a mental institution after an incident where he tried to hang himself because he lost control of his other problem, which is the fact that he has massive mutant powers. When he loses control of his mental state, everything goes crazy around him. Like psychokinetic kitchens blowing up, tables blowing up, just stuff blowing up really in slow motion, which is cool. I mean, that's cool, but that seems like that's mainly what happens when he goes crazy. And he's in this place called Clockworks. He has a friend there, played by Aubrey Plaza. Her name is Lenny. And Aubrey Plaza, I'm in the middle of watching Parks and Rec right now. I wasn't on that train, and so me and my wife are binging through that. And it's really great to see her in a different type of role. I love her in Parks and Rec, don't get me wrong. But it's neat when you can see an actor completely transform into something really different. And Aubrey Plaza is great as another crazy person in Dan's life. And they're in this Clockworks mental institution together, probably. And David is just sort of living out his existence in this insane asylum. He's taking the pills every day. He's getting a visit from his sister at the opening of the show. He's sort of settled into a mundane day-to-day life of a crazy person. He wants to get out. He can't get out. He tells the doctors he's sane. They think he's crazy. If they tell the doctor he's crazy, they up his dosage. And so he's just sort of stuck in this mundane loop. And I think that there's something here in a commentary on the superhero genre as it exists today, where yes, it's incredibly popular, but it's a lot of the same stuff over and over again. Even when it tries to be inventive, it sort of gets bogged down in its own repetitiveness of just the kinds of plots you can do with superheroes. And it's interesting that Fox is the ones who are doing the most interesting, odd stuff. Last year they had Deadpool, which was this bizarre comedy, like super irreverent, super crass kind of take on the superhero genre that like really went off and did its own thing. And now they're here with FX doing this take again on the mutants with Legion. And it's definitely not Deadpool, but it's another one of these things that's like, well, this is way different. This is not the superhero that you're used to. And it's a really great breath of fresh air. And sort of in this meta context, we see that, you know, this David character is trying to break out of the day-to-day, the mundane craziness of his life. He meets a girl named Sydney, and I'm not sure Sydney's real at any point in this show. She gets lit in a particularly fantastic and dreamlike way in many of her shots. She has massive backlighting going on. She's got halos and everything. Later on, we do see her pop up as like legit just saying, I'm a Dream World character. I'm not real. I'm in your memory of this event, trying to help you out. You know, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get out. And all of this story is kind of being told in flashback as David is being interrogated by this guy who works for maybe the government. Definitely some guys with some guns and some power to like set up a place. It's really interesting because he's in this sort of nice, pristine room to start with. And you know, it gives you an impression of, okay, here's where we're at. Here's what this type of place is. It feels very sterile, very, very mental institution, psychiatrist office kind of place. And then we see the psychiatrist leave that room and walk through the actual facility, and it's very haphazardly thrown together. They've got like a giant empty pool that's full later. They've got like tents, and you kind of have this weird clash of expectations because you have this beautifully lit, kind of shiny, nice room inside of what seems like kind of a thrown together facility. Makes me wonder like who these guys are, if they're actual government, what kind of power they have. But it's telling that this guy wants to get to the bottom of what David is about. His superiors are of the opinion that they should just kill him now. And probably they're right from their point of view because he is super dangerous. But the psychiatrist guy wants to find out what's going on with him, wants to dig deeper into his psyche. He thinks he can handle it. Turns out he can't. But that's sort of further parts of the story. In telling this story, David, sort of relates that he fell in love with Sydney. They have a great start off courtship where she's doing her sitting down in the group therapy thing, haloed by the light, and he says, "You want to be my girlfriend?" And she says, "Yeah, don't touch me." She has a thing about not being touched. Seems like just a quirk at the beginning, and then we find out why she doesn't want to be touched, because we get a montage of their blossoming relationship together. A lot of montages, by the way, tons and tons of montages and cutting around and cutting into things, which is what makes us so slippery to talk about from a plot point kind of view. But eventually she's going to be taken out of the mental institution. Someone comes to get her. It's her father or the doctor, or I forget exactly who the guy was. And also I don't know if he is who he said he was, because again, on top of things not maybe being real inside of his head, there also might be people lying about who they are. But he comes to get her, and right before he does, David kisses Sydney. He's like, she's leaving, this is my chance. He kisses her, and when he kisses her, they body swap. He's in her body, she's in his body, maybe, and he escapes sort of from the mental institution. So again, this is where things get tricky, because they're swapped around. She, in his body, I think, starts hallucinating / seeing things, and including this character that he's talked about throughout his therapy, and I think we've seen flashes of before, but really get a good look at here, the demon with the yellow eyes, who is just this like weird looking creature slash man. He's got like a big like jowl of a chin, and like all like his face looks half melted, and he's got these yellow eyes. Comes at David in this sequence where everything goes red, but not David. David's body, possibly with Sydney Barrett in it. And then we cut back to Sydney Barrett as David, who realizes, holy crap, I'm in a different body. What's going on with this? Looks at herself in the mirror, himself in the mirror as her. I'm confusing myself saying this stuff. She goes back into the mental institution where now all of the doors have turned into walls. Everyone, all of the patients have been on lockdown and they're shut in their rooms, except for Lenny, who apparently was in the process of escaping or going into her room or something. She's been literally chopped in half by this wall. And again, I don't know if this is real, because knowing the premise of the show, I know that Legion, the character, right, David, has multiple personalities. And I'm relatively heavily convinced that Sydney is one of them. We know later that Lenny comes back to haunt him as sort of a mental projection. So she's an aspect of the hallucinations that he has also. It's entirely possible that this whole sequence is just him sort of visualizing the compartmentalization of his mind, where he's like splitting off all of these different personalities and not allowing them into himself. And that's why all the doors disappeared. Or maybe literally some aspect of his powers made the doors disappear, or maybe both. Maybe him trying to segment off his mind also resulted in him messing up this mental facility really bad. It's hard to tell, and what is even harder to tell is he escapes as Sydney, but then later he's back as David, and there's not really an explanation for that. It's just, and then I was back in my own body. Was she stuck in the institution still? Again, probably not, because she's probably a projection of his brain the whole time. But you see where I'm coming from again with the confusion. The show does not hold your hand and tell you exactly what's going on. He goes back to his sister's house. She lets him in, obviously a little bit sort of unnerved that he's out and stuff, but also trying to, be supportive and happy that he's there, and puts him down in the basement. More shenanigans happen. There's a great musical sequence, and then he gets captured again, leading up to the framing device where we're at now, where he's being interrogated by these potentially government thugs. And he's now in the water in this pool where they have all this, like these live wires that are going to go in and shock him if he messes up or doesn't do what they want to do, threatening to kill him. And inside of a memory, Sydney Barrett shows back up, says, "You're remembering this. I'm projected inside of your memory. Here's what I want you to do. Get under the water. I'll take care of the rest." And so he does. He slips under the water in the pool, and fire everywhere. Very cool effect, by the way. Like sort of precursor, you see like little flames lighting up, and then just boom, the whole room blows up, and you see charred skeletons fall into the water by him, which is just great. And then he's being rescued by this group of mutants. Maybe. Again, I'm not convinced that these are real people. Knowing the premise of the show, I think that the odds that these are all some aspect of his personality that have access to different types of power of his is very high. But he does get out regardless. It's a very cool action scene where, punching through walls. There's one of these guys who we don't know what have a name for yet, is throwing people around, just like, really powerful stuff. They manage to fight their way out. He meets this older woman who says, "Hey, come with us. We're going to help you out." And that's most of the episode. That's the plot. However, there are so many things that I have questions about. Just like there's a guy in the background of the interrogation room, all right, wearing a green suit, like has like a messed up eye, hair is all weird. What's his deal? We like, I think he's real because the psychiatrist interacts with him at one point. So I feel like the odds are good that he's a real person. We also see him outside of David's field of view, which means probably he's not a hallucination because there's no reason for him to be hallucinated at that point. But he's super weird and creepy, and a lot of the design of this show is incredible, with the visual style, obviously, the like sort of really ambiguous timeline where you have these sort of styles from the 70s and the 60s, but also technology that is possibly even from the future of where we are now, and like a brilliant use of color. It all adds into, as well, this sort of unsettling notion that you can't quite put your feet down anywhere. You can't know for sure what's going on, and it's just beautifully done. There's also obviously questions of what's up with that guy in the wall in the mental institution. There's a dude like in the plants in the mental institution that we just see several times, and you think there's no way that that's real. Like the mental institution people wouldn't let this guy hang out in the plants all day, but we see him over and over and over again. What's that dude's deal? What's the deal with the demon with the yellow eyes? Is he another aspect of David's personality that he sees and like doesn't like? You know, maybe he's like a bad version of this. How much of this is real at all? That is maybe the one thing that frustrates me, is that I would love for there to be just a little bit more handhold of, even if it's something turned out not to be real, of like, we're going to let you believe that this is real for a while. Whereas this show doesn't. It leaves you completely off balance basically the whole time. And visually it works really well, but from a story perspective, I want just a little bit more. I want to have some indication that something I'm seeing is a real thing that's happening, because it's a little bit hard to sort of become invested in these characters when you're asking yourself the whole time, okay, but she's not real, right? Like, she's just a manifestation of his personality, but why can't he touch her? It's confusing in a way that is good a lot of the time, but I would like for it not to go quite as far as it did. I want to have some answers, something that I can grab onto and say, okay, I know that this is real. And even if it turns out not to be later, I would love for there to be a fixed point that can move, rather than everything just being sort of this almost fluid, dreamlike state through the whole thing. It makes it a little bit difficult to grab onto. And I know that that's 100% intentional, and I trust Noah Hawley. I think that all of this stuff will pay off and will sort of cement itself into something that we understand going forward. But with only this first episode under our belts, it's a little bit uncertain. So I definitely liked it, but I want a little bit more to hold on to, a little bit more of a finger hold in the plot so that I can really invest. It's hard to invest in a character that you think might not be real. And the actors all do a great job of, portraying who they are. Dan Stevens, I know him from The Guest. It's a great film. I believe he's also on Downton Abbey. I have not watched that show yet, but he brings a great manic, crazy energy to this manic, crazy character. And as I mentioned, Aubrey Plaza is amazing. The lady who plays Sydney, definitely has, there's a lot of nuance here. And every frame is so packed with visual information and sort of cues for different things. It's confusing now and overwhelming now, but I think as we go on and as we get more information about who these people are and what their deal is, you're going to be able to go back to this episode and see stuff in a whole new light. This seems like the kind of TV show that could change your entire view of this first episode and what you saw and what you thought you saw and what was real and what wasn't. And I'm looking forward to that experience. I'm looking forward to my understanding of this evolving as we go forward. So that's it for this week, folks. If you like the recap, click the like button, subscribe to the channel for more. I will be doing these on a weekly basis, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Possibly coming out mostly on Tuesday morning/afternoons, because it airs a little bit late on Wednesday, and sometimes I'm tired on Wednesday, guys. But I will be hitting this up every week. I'm very excited to see where this goes. I can honestly say I have no idea what's coming next, but I know it's going to be awesome, because Noah Hawley is a genius, and I'll see you guys next week with another episode of the Human Echoes Recap.